Hi, Ryan. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Susie. I'm happy to be here.
Well, many of our clients have a target age in mind for retirement. As they approach that age, a question we hear frequently is, how do I know if I've saved enough to retire?
Yeah, it is such a common question, but that question focuses on a particular number to achieve when really it's about more than just a number. And what I mean by that is it depends on what your expenses are that are going to fund your lifestyle in retirement. It also depends on what type of predictable sources of income you have, like pensions or Social Security or annuities. And then it depends on the difference between the two. And I call this your gap. This represents the amount of money you'll have to withdraw from your portfolio. And once you know your gap, you then see how much of your portfolio that gap represents. And then, by using some assumptions on life expectancy, inflation, and returns, we can project how long the money will last and therefore whether you have enough.
Well, great. That sounds like a lot to do. And when you're ready to take that leap, what's the first thing you should do?
All right, so the first part is getting organized. And we want to look at where are the assets, meaning which financial institutions are they held at? And what type of accounts do you have? And it's common to end up with multiple accounts in multiple places. And that might be inactive 401ks from old jobs, or maybe IRAs in a couple different places, brokerage accounts from employer stock plans, or even multiple bank accounts that have just been opened over the years. But I think it's time to consider consolidating any duplicate accounts you have, because this allows you to easily see your whole financial picture. It can potentially be more cost effective. It may be easier to get a sense of any tax implications or, to any investment changes or any withdrawals. And it makes it easier for your family to manage if something were to happen to you.
Great considerations. So you did mention there could be a gap between your expected retirement income and your expenses. So how could you fill that gap?
Well, first, let's realize it's totally okay to have a gap, okay? Most people do, because most people don't have access to a pension these days. So the next phase of planning, of course, like you said, is how do we fill the gap? So we'll start by looking at how your accounts are invested now, meaning what's the mix of stocks, bonds, and cash in each account. And we're going to reevaluate that asset mix through the lens of filling the gap. Once we have all of that captured, then we run an analysis to see whether the way you're set up right now is generating enough income to help fill the gap when you retire. So let's note that I said income and not return, okay? Income comes from usually two different places: dividends off of stock and interest off of bonds. The question is, again, given how you're set up right now, what's your mix generating for you, and will it be enough to help you fill that gap once you retire? Now, if you're still a few years away from retirement, let's start educating yourself now about the types of investments that could generate more income. One major category that I get asked about a lot is income annuities. And these are investments that serve the purpose of helping to fill that gap with income that you can't outlive and isn't market dependent.
All right, so once your retirement income sources are in place, how might you think about positioning the rest of your investments?
Yeah, once you've identified the amount of your portfolio that you need to generate income to support your lifestyle, then the next step is to determine the appropriate mix of stocks and bonds for the remaining assets to have some potential for growth. The purpose of a growth component in your plan is so that you keep up with or ideally outpace inflation. And remember, your retirement assets need to get you to and through retirement, which could be 20, 30, or 40 years. And inflation can have a huge impact on your buying power over time. Now, just because it's in this growth category I talked about doesn't mean it has to be aggressive or really risky. You still want to think about the level of risk you're comfortable with, commonly known as your risk tolerance, with tolerance being the most important part of that phrase. It means thinking about the level of ups and downs in the portfolio that you can tolerate. And we're still talking about a prudent, disciplined, diversified portfolio that's appropriate for your overall plan, but that you're comfortable sticking with over time. That's why it's so important to cover your expenses in retirement first. And the more of your expenses that support your lifestyle that are covered by reliable sources of income, the easier it may be to stay invested for potential growth.
All right, well, we've been focusing on the financial side of retirement readiness, but you need to prepare for a mental shift too. So how can you emotionally prepare for retirement?
Yeah, I actually think this is something people don't mentally prepare for enough. And when they get there, they're surprised by how much of an emotional challenge it is. And I mean, on the one hand, it's a really exciting time because you can think about living the retirement you've worked so hard for. But on the other hand, when you actually get to that moment of transitioning away from work, it can be stressful and you're going through a lot of emotions at once. I mean, think about it. For decades, the focus has been save your money and grow your money. But once you retire, that focus shifts to use your money and make sure that it lasts. And when I sit with clients, this shift is arguably one of the most challenging things they actually deal with. And then sometimes when we meet with clients who have a planning partner, their feelings about it could be totally different. So it's a really good idea to get on the same page. But that's where professionals like me can help. It's what we help clients with every day and what we're here for.
Well, Ryan, thanks so much for these insights.
Thanks so much for having me.
If you want help with retirement planning, reach out to your Fidelity representative. If you don't have a Fidelity representative, visit fidelity.com/find-an-advisor. And for more timely news and thinking from Fidelity's top thought leaders, subscribe to Insights from Fidelity Wealth Management. I'm Susie Allen. Join me again soon.